Peñarol is the nickname by which Juan Bautista Croza from Piedmont, Italy, was known. Croza was a native of the city of Pinerolo in northern Italy, where he would have been born around 1730. It is known that in 1751 he embarked for America and settled in the Banda Oriental, which is Uruguay today. At that time, it was common for personal documents to add the place of origin to the surnames, like Croza thus became Croza Pinerolo, and then, by distortion, Croza Peñarol. Every time he introduced himself, he did it as Peñarol instead of Pinerolo, which, over the years, for ease of speaking, Peñarol became that word that moves us so much, Peñarol. The conversion of Pinerolo to Peñarol ended up designating not only Croza, but also the entire area where he established his home and his business. In July 1890, the Central Uruguay Railway Company resolved to acquire 17 hectares 10 kilometers from Montevideo, in the area known as Peñarol, which belonged to Don Juan Lired. On May 1, 1891, the workshops and offices were inaugurated. The date was accepted as founding of Villa Peñarol, or Peñarolville. In September 1891, when less than 5 months had elapsed since the inauguration of the new workshops, a sports club was created, the Central Uruguay Railway Cricket Club, which everyone knew by its nom de guerre, Peñarol. On September 28, 1891, at 8 p.m., 15 guests gathered at the offices of the Central Uruguay Railway Company to begin the big story. That night they met to found the Club of Our Loves. After 2 hours of dialogue, an 8-member board of directors was appointed, and Mr. Frank Henderson, who served as manager of the aforementioned company, was appointed as president of the institution. The club was born under the name of CURCC, Central Uruguay Railway Cricket Club, and had 118 founding members, of whom 45 were Creoles, 22 English, and 1 German. The Creole presence at the time of the foundation was more than manifest. In that first meeting, the phrase that synthesized the spirit of the club arose: "You will be eternal as time, and you will flourish each spring." Some versions indicate that Frank Hudson wrote this phrase at the bottom of the founding act, although others mention Arthur Davenport, the club's first secretary. The first board of directors consisted of F. Henderson, which was the chairman, F. Hudson, vice chairman, A. W. Davenport, secretary, T. V. Davis, treasurer, R. C. T. Moore, cricket captain, A. L. Penny, G. Hopkins, and A. Lucy, vocals. In 1891, the club only practiced cricket, with the clashes against Montevideo Cricket, a club from the English colony of the capital, which still maintains organization and activity. In that period, he was the most organized opponent in that sport. In addition, cricket matches were held with the English School Club, with members of the Albion Club, in internal championships. This is how the sports practice of the SURCC began. The colors adopted by the club were gold and black, which come from the rocket locomotive, and were the representative colors of the railway guide in general. It was decided that the first flag would have 4 black and 4 orange stripes, and in the upper left corner, the initials SURCC. Later, in 1914, it will become the current flag with 11 stars representing the players, 4 yellow stripes, and 5 black. The railway team's shirt would have 4 black and orange squares tending to yellow. In 1896, the shirt changed to half black and half yellow and black, with thin yellow and black stripes. Sorry, the translation here is bad. And then in 1910, it changed to the shirt with vertical yellow and black stripes, which was never changed again and remains today. So today, this is Peñarol's official shirt, the vertical yellow and black stripes. A few months after the creation of the CURCC, the engineer John Woolsey, one of the 118 founders, proposed to practice the Football Association. Surely he meant proposed to found the Football Association. His motion was supported, and with the agreement of the administrator, it was approved in the assembly held on May 5, 1892. Thus, the historical destiny of Peñarol was sealed. In this way, football relegates cricket to second place. On May 3, 1892, Peñarol's first match was held, facing the students of the British College and winning 2-0. This would be the beginning of the history, the present, and the richest future of our football. The English translation of the minutes of the first constitutive meeting is as follows. Chairing Mr. Roland Moore. On September 28, 1891, Messrs. Moore, Lucy, T.B. Davis, Frederick Sealfield, Penny, Hopkins, Woolsey, Cock, Chas, Oates met at the offices of the Central Railroad in the town of Peñarol, Gordon, Ward, Camino, and Devonport in order to establish a sports club in the town. Being 8 p.m., Mr. Moore declares the act open. Continuous act proposes Mr. Davis to designate an ad hoc secretary and proposes Mr. Devonport. The motion having been seconded and accepted, said gentleman takes his position. Mr. Davis requests the floor and motions to first elect a board of directors made up of 8 members. Several of those present took part in the debate and, at the request of Mr. Moore, it was resolved to proclaim Mr. Henderson by acclamation. Continuous act. Mr. Penny motions for a vote on the board of directors, which once elected will designate the respective positions among them. After the vote, the canvassing table proclaimed the following candidates. Mr. Hudson, 11 votes. Mr. Lucy, 10 votes. Mr. Moore, 10 votes. Mr. Davenport, 8 votes. Mr. Hopkins, 8 votes. Mr. Davis, 7 votes. Mr. Penny, 6 votes. Mr. Lucy proposed that the monthly fee to be 50 pennies, or an annual fee of $5 or £5 or 5 Uruguayan pesos. I'm not sure what the currency is there. But anyway, payable in advance. This motion being seconded by Mr. Ziegfeld, put to a vote and approved unanimously. Mr. Moore proposes that the next assembly take place on October 6, 1891, in order to discuss the regulations. Not being for more, the session adjourned at 10 p.m. Signed, A.W. Davenport, Secretary ad hoc. Translation of the first board meeting minutes. In Peñarol on September 29, 1891, the board of directors of the new football club meets. Being 8:15 p.m., Mr. Hudson declares the act open with the assistance of Messrs. Lucy, Moore, Davenport, Hopkins, Davids, and Penny. It was unanimously resolved to name the club Central Uruguay Railway Cricket Club. Mr. Hudson proposed that a subcommission be appointed to study and present a regulation for the next assembly, naming Messrs. Moore and Lucy to prepare it. In addition, it is resolved that the board of directors will meet again on October 3rd, 1891, to study the draft regulations. Mr. Moore proposes that a subcommission be appointed to try to obtain a suitable field for sports. Mr. Moores and Davids are appointed to form this subcommission, appointed Messrs. Penny, Hopkins, and Davenport to advertise for associates. Mr. Lucy motions to place the respective notices on the next assembly on the board of the central station, and also to pass a circular in each section of the railway. Not being for more, the session was adjourned at 9:30 p.m. Signed, F. Hudson, President. A. W. Davenport, Secretary. In 1892, football began to be played at Peñarol, or the cricket club. It was resolved in the assembly on May 5th, and John MacGregor was appointed as captain. A few days later, the first friendly was played on May 11th against a group of students from the British College. It was a Cole victory by 3-2. Coal is, Peñarol, because they used to be, I don't know why, they used to carry coal in their railways. So this would be at the beginning of history, the present and the richest future of our football. The first member of Peñarol was P. Sedgefield, P. Deschamps, and J. MacGregor, R. Burns, W. Jones, and J. Burns, J. Woosey, Hopkins, A. Davenport, T.V. Davis, and H. C. Sagehorn. The formation traditional at that time was 1-2-3-5. On May 25, 1892, the first field that Peñarol had was inaugurated, located at Camino Casaballe and Coronel Raiz, in the heart of Bishop Peñarol or Peñarolville. In the early years, the rivals were Albion and the Universitario Football Club. It's funny that Albion is another word for England. There were also numerous confrontations against the crews of ships passing through the port of Montevideo. Wow, so things, football has always, sparked a lot of passion, even in 1892. Soccer, this is football, because it translates as soccer, but I prefer football because it's the original name for soccer. I mean, soccer is football, really. So I refer it as football. English refer it as football as well. So football begins to displace cricket, and the first Creole players begin to mix with the English. Julio Negron, first Creole captain in 1895. Edmundo Acevedo, Lorenzo Masuco, 1897, and the youthful Ricardo de los Rios are the best exponents. In 1899, its greatest figure of the period arrived, Juan Pena. He was the first offensive Creole innovator. He taught that the goal is generated at the ends. I don't know what he means by that, but maybe it's the translation, but probably you football fanatics will understand. He was Uruguayan champion with Peñarol in 1900, 1901, and 1905. On March 30th, 1900, the Uruguayan Football Association was founded, then called the Uruguayan Association Football League. The teams that founded it were Peñarol, Albion, Deuster FK, and Uruguay AC. Interesting. So it was Peñarol, Albion, which was represented by the English College, Deuster FK, which probably was represented by, formed by the German school, and Uruguay AC. I don't know which Uruguay AC was. American College? I don't know. You tell me, guys, you fanatics. The first championship of the Uruguay Association Football League is played between these teams, and the first official match of Peñarol takes place on June 10th, 1900, facing Albion. Oh, Peñarol won, the first championship, the first official match of the first championship of the Uruguay Association of Football League was played between Peñarol and Albion. So, very English. So, you get a sense of the wonderful history of the greatest football team in Uruguay, which is Peñarol, and how it started. It was started by English members, from the railway station, which is quite funny if you think about it. It's wonderful. History is very rich. It's very interesting for me. So, the first match of the first championship, Peñarol faced Albion. It was a debut with a 2-1 Peñarol victory. Peñarol won the first title of Uruguayan champion with a perfect undefeated by winning all the matches. He converted 36 goals in 6 games and barely conceded 2. In this decade, there is a more than particular fact, and that is that Peñarol inaugurates the Central Park. On May 25, 1900, Peñarol faced the Deutscher Fußball Club, owned of said stage in those years. Owner of said stage, the Central Park, in those years. Peñarol won 2-0 with goals from Buchanan and Davis. Yeah. On July 15 of the same year, that is 1900, the first classic in history is played, and the first mark is that Peñarol won 2-0 with 2 goals from Aniceto Camacho in Central Park. It will go down in history for being the first classic and also for being played in Central Park. Fascinating. Oh, this photograph is great. I'm going to put it as, part of the thumbnail. I wanted to talk about the history of the first and the most important Uruguayan team of football, Peñarol, because for me, not only like my family is, they are fans of Peñarol, as am I, although I'm not a fan of football. I don't watch football every day like my dad does. He's a real fan. He really loves the sport. But I love Peñarol because, it just goes through, from, it goes in your genes. Um, Only if you are, I think, if you're English, you can understand. And of course, Argentinian, Uruguayan, if you are from countries where football, or parenthesis soccer, um, is really, really like, like the first sport of the country. It's the only way you will understand what I'm talking about. But even if you don't, it's very interesting, fascinating. And for me, not only, I am talking about the Peñarol Athletic Club, uh, because of the history, the interesting history that ties it with England, the English roots of the team, but also, because I am. It's not that I chose to be a fan. Like, it's not just my heart. Like, if they ask me, which football team do you love, I just say Peñarol. Why? Because all my family comes from there, and um, my father used to live very near to the town of Peñarol, where Peñarol was born. So yes, it's like, it's very big in the family, and he watches football every day. I mean, he actually loves the sport, not just like some senseless entertainment, but it's like he loves the sport, and that's very English as well. It's like the English people who love football and watch football every day, or almost every day. I'm sure they understand also that it's a love for the sport, the actual sport, not just some senseless entertainment. As for myself, I do not watch football daily, nor monthly, and I only get to know about the last in football by my father. He's the one who keeps me up to date. um, but I love Peñarol. I will watch, of course, the finals, the semifinals, in the as I mean, especially if my country, of course, if my country is there, if my country is not in those finals, or those matches, I won't be as interested, because I really don't. I'm not a fan of football, but I appreciate the history. I appreciate, my personal, like my family history with this team. Appreciate the sport. Also, which is very big for me, the aesthetic, because um, you see these kind of histories, they always show you these very old photographs with the old teams, in the 1890s, and 1900s, and they are very old. For example, the picture that I'm looking at, and is the one I'm going to put as thumbnail, is so dark academia aesthetic, and that is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today. Well, because it's raining outside, so it's perfect for a podcast about something like historical, and it is dark academia for me, because the old photos of with old football teams, like in the it reminds me, yes, of the movie, the Dark Academia movie, quote unquote Dark Academia movie. Yes, I talked about it the other day, which is also one of my favorite movies. Yes, and it's Dead Poets Society. um, that, for example, is a very good example of dark academia aesthetic, which, an aesthetic is not just a photo, an image. It's also, it's culture, it's books, it's architecture, it's, yes, fashion, but it's also, uh, art, history. It's a lot of things. It's very rich. This, for me at least, personally, this aesthetic is very rich in culture. So that is one of the, is one of the main reasons I love that aesthetic. So this history of this, the most important and the greatest football team in Uruguay, Peñarol athletic club, is because, for me, it's also dark academia because of the photos of the old, the history of the old uh, teams, they're like forever behind a glass um, cabinet for everyone to look at, like in that scene, like in the first minutes of Dead Poets Society, when um, the professor leads them to, this like glass how you say, like glass cabinets where they depict all the history, of the college in terms of, sports. And I think it was rugby, and there was also football, as in soccer. Yeah, because the movie is um it's supposed to be in the United States, but because it's an English traditional college, I think, yeah, it was rugby, the pictures, but I'm sure it was football as well, because in another scene in the movie, you see Robin Williams' character, playing football with them. So it's just wonderful, and for me, those images are very dark academia, and so are the old football teams photos. So, and this photo that I'm looking at, it could be placed in that movie. It could be behind the glass cabinet, and it would be like, okay, was the first team, the first official like team who played the first match on the first Uruguayan championship. So, and it just, you look at it, and it's so, for me, it's so dark academia. I hope you understand the aesthetic and you learn something from this, because for me it's wonderful. It's just fascinating. um Maybe that is why one of the reasons I became um oh, no, not that beginning. That is one of the reasons that I feel so close. I've always felt so close to England, because maybe of the football, the history of the football here, of you know uh, Peñarol football team, um, because of my father. Because I was brought up with a lot of English culture, even though I didn't go to the British college. No, no, no. But I wish I had done. That would have been really dark academia. And here in my country, there are many old colleges that are incredible, that come from like British heritage or German or whatever, and it's very, very dark academia. So yeah. Even though I didn't go to an English school, um, I was brought up with like English culture and English values. I have no idea why. Because my heritage, like genetic heritage, is not English per se. Um, it's European. That's another topic. My genetic heritage, but it's mainly European, and native Indian from here, from this rich, beautiful region of South America. Also, I have possibly Moorish, or yes, Moorish uh, genetics as well, Um, so it's very interesting. But I was raised with the English culture, like music, like English music, English, like always like the authors like Oscar Wilde. I know he was Irish, but what I mean is like British. And when the football, the history, the values of it's very like old fashioned, but they are also timeless. So that's one of the charms, I guess. And that is why I feel so attached to English culture, because I was raised you know in quite like I was raised with English values and English culture, aside from my other European heritages. So yeah, so I hope you have found this little first history of Peñarol Athletic Club. I love it. It's been just over half an hour. Um, I love doing this. I love these podcasts. I hope you do as well. And I think it's very interesting, to realize how much people have in common, even if they live thousands of miles away, because there's always you know like the culture, like there's always there's I mean always there's always going to be something that um we have in common. Okay, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, especially today, with the globalization, especially with that. Now we all have access to different cultures and entertainment, so access to books as well, to different authors, to different artists, um, different sports from different cultures. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to to say, okay, you know people have things in common. We can share interesting things. For me, is this, for example, it's just a tiny example, because football is loved by millions and millions of people, and I'm not talking about just South America and England. It's worldwide. We all know that. But once upon a time, football was just a little thing. It was just England, and it was just this countries here in the English Empire. Although the English Empire was here, yes, in South America. uh well, they have the Falkland Isles, um but still here, in my country, in South America, there is a footprint, an English footprint, because English also um have ex-colonies here. So yeah, even though the main ex-colony is Spain and Portugal here in South America, okay. But even though the football culture, the football history that I've just talked about comes from the fact that the queen at the moment, at the time, just say, I mean, because of the conquest of South America. So because of the of going to another like part in the world, and just saying, okay, we are the rulers now. Yes, it has very negative connotations, very negative consequences. But aside from that, you can also find wonderful things like football. just interesting history. I'm going to talk about slavery here in South America, which was very prevalent, not as bad as in the United States, uh, but it was, it existed. Okay, um, that's the whole, another chapter of the history of this region. The slavery. Yes, and we all know England was one of the main slaves tradesmen, which is horrible, but that's history. You can't sugarcoat history. You just have to say it as it is. That doesn't mean that there aren't also wonderful things to talk about, beautiful things to talk about. It's not all about doom and gloom. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything, a point to life, in the mundane sense. So, it's not everything doom and gloom. There are also wonderful and beautiful things. So, yes, I like the dark and I like the light, like this one, like the inception of the wonderful, glorious Peñarol Athletic Club, which is the club of my heart. So, yeah, that's it for now. And we will, meet again very soon. Have a great day and God bless you all. Bye.